This is a podcast which does not shy away from difficult and vulnerable topics, and we ask you to take care of yourselves when you listen. The content is of an adult nature, and we do swear at times.
Welcome to the Autistic Licence podcast. I'm Leo in London.
I'm Shauna, and I'm Carrickfergus in Northern Ireland.
We invite you to listen in on our conversations as we experiment with unmasking in an autistic space. We talk about what it means to discover we're autistic as adults, especially with established careers as therapists. We want people to know that autistic therapists exist and to broaden the conversation about neurodiversity. You're so welcome to join us, whoever you are and wherever in the world you are. We hope you'll find something of interest and connection here. Problem is, I think also I was thinking this when I was out about aspects of how I felt before, during and after my dentist appointment, and I thought, well, that's interesting. But the thing is, the only thing that I tend to do that isn't sitting here doing therapy kind of stuff, including this, is to go out for medical appointments. So that's all that gets reported on, is what's wrong with me, what it was like getting treatment for it, what the processes were like that I saw were broken, how I would do it if I was running things, all of that. It's always medical, and I'm more...
Well, okay.
At some point, I'll be able to talk about things like, I will spend at some point a weekend making music or something, and then I can talk about creative process, which is a huge thing.
But I
world.
think you have this idea that all you ever do are those things. That's not really true. It's not actually true.
Well, it wasn't last week.
You haven't told the listeners about your drone, for example.
Okay, fair enough.
You went out over the weekend for a walk with the dogs, and you discovered a beautiful place close to you that you hadn't been to before.
Oh, that's nice, yeah. Okay.
And you don't go, sometimes it obviously, like for lots of people, it can feel like you've got lots of medical appointments, but that's not really what your life's like.
No, it
all
isn't.
The time.
And there was a time until, say, 7 years ago where I would have been in a hospital clinic every single week for years for a number of different things. Yes. Many of which, you're right, have resolved, and therefore that's not the case anymore. So it is also partly an image of myself that still persists.
That is interesting, though, that you just came out with that, and I didn't see that as all that you ever do. But some part of you does.
Yes, sees me as a collection of medical problems that need management.
And attention. Yeah, and it's not actually true that's the things that we've recorded about.
No,
at
definite.
all.
No, it's
although I guess what hasn't been said, and I was thinking that on the recording that we did yesterday, that we were talking about the gap, and I kind of was talking about how for me that might have been aligned with like a general kind of exhaustion and need for just not to have anything very much to do.
Quite a conscious avoidance of burnout, in fact.
Yes, that's what I was talking about. But we didn't actually mention something that you might want to talk about or mention in retrospect that was going on for you, because you had a health situation that over that period of time was being managed.
The fact that I managed it in a very autistic way, and even my own emotional experience of it was very different from anything similar that had happened to me before.
That's right. That's right.
You know, I did have this very calm, kind of flatlined emotional response to the whole thing, really. And some conversations with family, for example, where there was an expectation that I would be experiencing it very differently, that was confounded. So I probably don't really have to talk about anything that happened up until the surgery, because we did that in real time. We talked on the day that I'd been to the GP. That introduces what the problem was and why I was there. Well, I'm now, okay, so you're making some thoughtful faces.
Isn't it funny? I just noticed myself there as you were talking, and I just started to twist my chair,
Yes.
which must kind of communicate subliminally to you, Shauna.
You've got something to say about
something
this.
To say about
You'd like
this.
to do it in a particular way, or you're thinking of a way that this might come out in which.
I am. I'm thinking that,
Okay.
you know, I'm thinking we if we put any of this out, we need to deal with the cryptic nature of how we're talking. And then at a later date, we might, if it feels like, if there's energy, motivation for it from us, we might then put together some of those recordings. I'm tentative because there would be a lot of raw, difficult stuff in those recordings, and whether or not we feel motivated to go back to that now or in 6 months or in a year is anybody's guess.
It would be a lovely.
Point.
It would be a very interesting. I was going to say lovely, but actually I do mean it lovely. It would be a lovely project to do that episode, given that we've got this opportunity, I suppose, that we haven't had before, of having historic recordings that were, I'm going to use the word, contemporaneous, and that we can stitch them together. Yeah. Oh, yeah. We can stitch them together and make a really nice narrative about an autistic middle-aged man's existential health crisis and how it affected you and I in that time, and how that contrasted with how that, affected other people around me, because it's very different.
That's right. So can we just, I guess, well, maybe I can say
yes, please do.
Something to just sketch the context.
Yes,
10 minutes
great.
after we start
yes.
to talk about it. So kind of in the middle of May, you went to your GP because of growth that you found, let's call it that, because you didn't know what it was called, in your mouth. It kind of looked a bit like an ulcer, but much bigger than an ulcer. And you didn't know how long it had been there, but suddenly it came to your attention, and you got anxious when you discovered it, actually, and wanted to get to see the GP as soon as possible. And then went to the GP, who also was not behind the door about showing that he was very concerned. And he made an urgent referral through the cancer pathway to get it investigated. And then about, I think it was a 2-week turnaround, then you went to that hospital appointment. The consultant that you saw then was verbally more relaxed about it and didn't think that it was such a big emergency or that it was likely to be cancerous. However, he said that he did want to have it removed. And a lot of what we talked about was the effects of these different people's delivery of the news, which left us not really knowing how to take it, because there was then a referral, an urgent referral, to get this removed. And then there would have been an appointment to get it removed, but then really unclear procedures as to how they were going to communicate the results to you, or how long that was going to take. So then there was still the unknowns of why they were doing that and why nobody seemed to know. And did that mean one thing, or did that mean another thing? So the news that everyone will be waiting for is that you are okay, that it was a benign growth called a...
Oh, don't ask me now. I'm going to have to insert that.
Fibrous something?
Not sure.
called a fibrous something, which is just a kind of an annoyance, really.
That was probably triggered by me having a damaged tooth through lockdown that probably aggravated the flesh and that encouraged a growth. Yes.
That's
well,
right.
actually, and something that came out of that, which then brings it extremely relevantly to this very day, is that a dentist probably would have spotted it and maybe would have known what it was, or at least referred me on and said, you need to go and get this checked out probably sooner, although I don't know how long it was there for. And I had my dental checkup this morning where I told him about it and he had a little look and said, yes, that's all healed and there's nothing in your mouth that would cause that again. And because I've had that tooth fixed since. And so that's lovely. There was a lot went on for me as you were you were sketching out the narrative, the kind of the timeline of the events. Because and I knew this anyway, but you've just underlined it, that you really know all this stuff. It's just in your head. It was something that you also experienced yourself with me, and the fact that you know all of that is, I don't know, there's something very nourishing about that. And then what I would kind of lay alongside that to sketch out what we would talk about was my experience of our relationship during that time and particularly how we communicated as these things happened. And I did talk about this in some of the recordings. I talked about it in the first GP one where, you said to me, what if you die soon? That really stuck with me because that's the kind of plain speaking I need. I think a lot of people do as well, but a lot of people really, really don't. And a lot of people also really would never in a million years say something like that to somebody 10 minutes out of a GP appointment who've been told they're on the cancer pathway. But we both knew how very directly we needed to talk about all the possibilities and take them seriously. And I felt really taken seriously rather than somebody being melodramatic and scaremongering, which I imagine is what some people would interpret that kind of language as. All right, if they would avoid saying any of those things because it would be seen as dramatizing something or making an anxious person even more anxious. It's the opposite of that. We know that. That is an autistic part of the experience.
That's not really that long ago. And that's actually probably a really key experience that affected the podcast because that was happening and we weren't releasing. And of course, things go on in our lives that we don't talk about in the podcast. That happens to everyone who does podcasts. But it kind of all of the timing of all of that stuff together. It's just interesting that even like when we were recording the last episode about the break, that we didn't even mention that, and maybe it is just the link with you being at the dentist this morning. Maybe that did bring it back because I did say to you after the dentist, well, did you show him or did you tell him about this? So that must have been on my mind. It might also explain why you were quite nervous and trepidatious about going and why you fell asleep afterwards
and properly asleep as well, really properly, not a nap. I called it
and
a
it was
nap.
only a wee 5-minute
collapse.
appointment.
That's
that
right.
was totally fine.
Totally
so it wasn't
benign, absolutely.
It was not the appointment itself, but maybe it was your mouth that was being looked at. So,
yes. Yes. But the other thing then, so there's another, you're talking about the interesting fact that this was very recent, really quite dramatic, quite profound.
It's only actually got resolved towards the end of July.
Yeah, and officially,
you got
exactly, and officially,
discharged.
actually, August was when they had that kind of virtual appointment amongst themselves.
Yes.
That happened invisibly
but you
to
spoke
me.
And got you spoke towards the end of July and got the kind of
I had my
definite all clear.
Correct.
Yes,
But you're right.
You were still at that stage though, suffering some pain that might have been like referred
jaw,
pain to nerves. So actually even that side of it wasn't gone.
No, and still actually recurs very, very rarely, but actually, have some...
it's still there.
But what I was thinking of was when you were saying that it was so recent and yet it was absent from the narrative. There's another autistic bit of experience in there, which is that we deal with the thing that's in front of us.
That's right.
It's not in front of us now.
Not in front of us now. We don't, but we haven't talked about it. We haven't referred back to it till now. We've had numerous conversations since the end of July.
Totally, yes.
And it's only now that we're realising that was only 6 weeks ago and we don't talk about it.
Yes.
So that is a very autistic, like you deal with what's
and
there.
we've seen each other. I mean, we've properly spent time together.
We've also just talked.
Yes. No, but what I mean is that it's not like we haven't had a chance to catch up or anything. It's just
we
over.
Didn't reflect on it. Yeah.
That's so last August.
That's so 6 weeks ago.
Yes. There's your title.
Yeah. And yet it's come back today. And it mustn't be a coincidence that you were at the dentist today.
No, I think you're right. And I think important that we've noted that happened. I came home and I properly collapsed. I mean, not like ill collapsed, I just went unconscious. I just was overwhelmed with tiredness. And
yeah. Isn't it interesting, though, that this also started today with you saying, all I do is go to health appointments. And I was like, no, it's not. But actually...
But there's a focus that we missed out on.
And somehow that part of you felt the need to bring that in and turn our attention towards that there can be times. And not that even during that period of time, all you did was went to health appointments. You didn't. There was a few health appointments and you did other things. But something needed to be brought into the conversation in whatever way that, those little words brought us back to this.
That's a unique experience for me to have been able to have that, and I would call it support, that kind of support where everything was direct and out and on the table and nothing was taboo, and it was so incredibly refreshing and affirming. It's a very positive experience in a perverse way to just be able to just deal with something and say what other people would say the unsayable.
Yeah, and being two autistic people meant that you could hear it and I could say it.
Yes.
Because I guess if I said that to someone who's not autistic, it would be like, can you just hold that?
Did you really have to say that out loud? Was that necessary? Because now I'm terrified. I hadn't thought of that.
I hadn't thought about that.
I had my fingers in my ears
clearly.
and I was humming loudly, and you had to make it go in my head. Yeah. No, but it's true, though. That's probably generally true. There was another little thing that just happened there. Not quite synesthesia, but I suppose it is in a way, in that a couple of senses got meshed together then. Which was that sometimes, I've had this when I've watched movies, that I'll see something and there'll be such a particular texture, for example, that I can absolutely feel it with touch through my eyes.
Yes, that is synesthesia.
Yes. So I had that just then when for a little while your hands were visible and you were moving them in a particular way, and I could feel this, my hand and your hand. I'm having quite an emotional response to that, which is a deep and warm one, even though elements of it were very difficult. Reflection, that's what it is. It's just a really nice contextual reflection of how important those couple of months have been that have only just happened.
Only just happened. Yeah, well, my mind goes to, like it was only over 5 or 6 weeks ago, and it lasted longer in itself, like from start to finish so that felt like a long time. It was going on. I think from to kind of bring this together with therapist kind of reflections, it strikes me that there's a really nice kind of analogy with what happens in a therapeutic process where like someone doesn't really know what to talk about or what the session is going to hold. And the therapist doesn't know, the client doesn't know. You just start it and you commit to turn up. And then it can kind of just come together and it can be clear what it, then you can start making meaning out of things and you'll only ever get some of it. It's not saying that we consciously come aware of everything, but that I suppose, sometimes it can be helpful to demystify things like that for people. And when I kind of heard myself saying, going over what our process was, it just felt like today, our process today, it felt to me very similar to what happens in therapy.
That's right. That's exactly right.
And then you just come to know and come to honour really and hold what's really there.
Beautiful.
So we need to wrap up because I will be
you're on
summoned
call
soon to the bus stop.
Now.
So thank you for being with us, lovely listeners.
Thank you for being with us, lovely listeners. Speak again soon.
Bye-bye.
For those of you who've made it to the end, we want to let you know about an upcoming opportunity. We've been considering running groups for autistic people for a while, and on Monday, 7th of October, we're hoping to run a one-off group meeting. This will be a pilot group to gather ideas for ongoing and future planning. We'd love you to join us and have your say. Link in the show notes.
Thank you for listening to the Autistic License podcast. You can connect with us via Instagram, Facebook at autisticlicense.com or by email at autisticlicense@gmail.com. At this point, Leo likes me to spell the word license because we spell it in different ways in different parts of the world. We spell it LICENCE. We also have a thriving Facebook community. You can search for Autistic License Shauna and Leo on Facebook, or you can click on the link in the show notes.